Unit 5, Ratios and Percents. Lesson 4, Equivalent Ratios and Rates. Our lesson objective is to use equivalent ratios and rates to solve real-world and mathematical problems. We have one vocabulary word, which is equivalent ratios, and that definition is two ratios, and this should be TWO, not TO, that was a mistype. Two ratios that name the same number are equivalent ratios. An example is 4 to 6 is equal to 12 to 18. Please feel free to take your smart device and scan the QR code to watch the video on how to find equivalent ratios from virtualnerd.com. Here we're going to discuss how to generate equivalent ratios by using multiplication or division. We multiply or divide each term of the ratio by the same non-zero number. Once you go ahead and star this, so that if you have any questions how to make an equivalent ratio, you can come back to this section, and that should draw your attention to it. We're asked to write equivalent ratios, and we're asked to write two different ratios equal to the ratio 24 to 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write 24 to 8, and then I'm going to come over here and write 24 to 8 again a second time, since we're asked to write two different. We're going to use multiplication for the first one. Now, making equivalent ratios is just like making equivalent fractions. We can choose whatever we want to multiply it by as long as we do the same multiplication to each part of the ratio. Here, I'm going to choose to multiply by 2. So if I take 24 times 2, I get 48. Since it's in symbol form, I'm going to write my symbol. And then 8 times 2 is 16. 48 to 16 would be an equivalent ratio to 24 to 8 by using multiplication. Now we can also use division of both parts of the ratio to make an equivalent ratio, but in order to use division, both parts of the ratio have to have a common factor. 24 and 8 do have a common factor of 8. This is actually their greatest common factor. So I'm going to divide both of these by 8 to create an equivalent ratio. 24 divided by 8 is 3. Simple form again. 8 divided by 8 is 1. And here's our second equivalent ratio to 24 to 8. Let's practice a couple down here. In 1 through 4 here in the practice, we're asked to write an equivalent ratio. So see, here I have the ratio 2 to 5, and I need to create an equivalent ratio. I'm going to have to use multiplication on this because 2 to 5 do not have any common factors other than 1. So I'm going to go and let's multiply by 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Since this is in symbol form, I keep it in symbol form. 5 times 3 is 15. And then I box or circle it because that is my answer. That's my equivalent ratio. Let's look at number 2, 7 to 9. Here this is in fraction form, which is what you're probably used to seeing when making equivalents. Again, 7 and 9 don't have any common factors other than 1, so the only way that we can make an equivalent ratio is by multiplication. So here I'm going to choose 4. Something different. 7 times 4 is 28. It's in fraction form, so I'm going to keep that fraction bar. 9 times 4 is 36. And 28 to 36 will be an equivalent ratio to 7 to 9. I'd like you to go ahead and pause the video, take a couple of minutes, and create your own equivalent ratios to number 3 and number 4. Now let's take a look at ratios in word problem form. Here on number 1, we are asked or told that white and green paint are mixed in a ratio of 2 to 3. So white and green paint, the ratio is 2 to 3, so it's 2 white and 3 for the green. They say to use a multiplication table to write two equivalent ratios for the ratio of 2 to 3. Now here it just means they want you to create the equivalent ratio through multiplication. So we're going to write our ratio 2 to 3. And then we need to choose a value to multiply each part of this ratio by. Let's go by 5 this time. So we're going to multiply each part of this ratio by 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. It's in word form, so we're going to keep it in word form. 3 times 5 is 15. And here we have created a ratio of 10 to 15. Now 10 since it's equivalent to the 2, is for our white paint. And 15, since it's equivalent to the 3, that's for our green paint. Let's read number 2. Sonia can read 3 pages in 8 minutes. At that rate, how many pages will she read in 24 minutes? So this is a rate. We know we have the rate of 3 pages to 8 minutes. And we know we're finding equivalence. And they tell us that we need to find how many pages in 24 minutes. Now, when you're setting up this equivalence and then we have labels, we want to make sure that we keep the same label in the numerator section and the same label in the denominator section. Now here, this is just like those proportions that we've been solving previously. And remember, the definition of proportion is 2 ratios that are equal to each other. So here's one ratio and here's another ratio, and they're equal. And we're going to use multiplication to find our missing value. Well, since I'm going from a small value to a large value here, I know I'm going to use multiplication. So 8 times 3 is 24, and since I multiplied the denominator portion of the ratio by 3, I have to do the same to the numerator portion. So 3 times 3 is 9. So at this rate, how many pages will she read in 24 minutes? She will read 9 was our answer here. 9 pages in 24 minutes. And then this right here would be our answer. So we would box it or circle it. I would like you to take a minute, pause the video, and solve the problem on number 3.